Hello and welcome to the Pink 'Un Show, the Norwich City fanzine that's been busy. New Look newspapers, a New Look City boardroom, a New Look City team and squad after transfer deadline day, and plenty of newfound hope for City's promotion push too, just about after last night. A lot has happened since the window slammed shut last Tuesday, and now we're back in the fine city after trips to Wales and Wigan in between. We're going to try and make sense of it all. To help do that, I'm joined tonight by these three doughty mustardeers: Darren, Eadie, Cedric, Anselin, and City season ticket holder Scott George. Don't forget, we want you to get involved too, and you can via YouTube or on our Facebook page. Failing that, you can join the debate on Twitter. Get it all off your chest using the handle @Pink'un. Right, loads to get through, so let's start with the headlines. Like a dykes to water. Let's say cautious optimism greeted City's deadline day dealings last week, but come Saturday, the playoff push was back on track, thanks in no small part to Mitchell Dykes. Alec Neil's beast hit the ground running in Cardiff and scored last night in Wigan. He's looking good. Bogle leads City a merry dance. The same can't quite be said of City's other big deadline day signing, Yannick Vilskud. Roundly booed by the Latics faithful, he failed to make an impact and saw his replacement at Wigan, Omar Bogle, bag 2 goals to check Norwich's championship charge. Still, it's early days, Yannick, early days. Closer, but no cigar. He played every minute of the Canaries' 4 league matches in January, but Tim Closer has missed out on the PFA Fans Player of the Month award. Striker Chris Wood bagged that honour and half the votes cast after scoring 6 goals in 4 games for Leeds United. Yeah, fair enough. And finally, premature ejaculation. Come on now. Yeah. Was it a hard Jexit or soft Jexit? That's still being debated, but whichever way you dice it, Jez Moxey has left the club after just 6 months as Norwich City's chief executive. Did his time come too soon? We'll speak about that in a bit, but for now, Darren, Cedric and Scott.
You're such a child.
Welcome. Yep. Welcome aboard. So, Norwich City, 2 away trips, 2 long away trips. Been a long week. 4 points.
For you, a long week.
For me, not just for me, but yeah. 4 points from 6. I'm sure when we were talking last week, Darren, that was fine.
Yeah, it was. I think after the recent run of form, especially away from home, it is important to not lose both of those games and just try and get as much out of them as we can. I think if it had been a draw at Cardiff and a win at Wigan, I think we'd have been relatively happy with that. So over the 2 games, I think 4 points in 4 days, essentially against 2 sides, which you're trekking all over the country. I think it's decent. Yeah.
I mean, we're in a similar situation, I suppose, to where if Norwich had been leading 2-0 and drawn 2-2, that'd have been more disappointing than being 2-0 down and coming from 2 behind. The fact that Norwich drew the second game maybe leaves a few fans a little deflated that it wasn't 6, because it probably should have been, shouldn't it, Scott?
Yeah, but like Darren said, I think 4 points, you'd have took it definitely beforehand. Yeah, I think it's very positive at the moment. You know, we've got to be happy with that.
It's good, I like that.
Well, I think you'll find as well as players, you tend to look at the bigger picture, don't you? You don't really look from game to game. You look over the whole of the season and go for points, and I think that's would probably be not quite as emotive as the fans at times, I think.
I think if it was 2 months ago, they probably lost them 2 games. So, you know, it's a positive. 4 points, 2 away trip. You know, it's good.
And they've had to dig in with both of those games as well. I mean, at Cardiff and Wigan, it was both kind of in your face. I mean, it was some of the worst football I've seen in a long time, I've got to be honest, in both games, from both sides.
Yeah, and as Cedric said, typical games they probably would have lost only a month or so ago. So, yeah, I think they've made strides to toughen up, essentially. I think they look stronger. Bringing the 2 new boys in, I think, have added height and a bit of strength into that side, which was lacking massively. Yeah. So it's nice to see them fitting in so well.
We'll get onto those 2 in a moment. But first of all, I had the delightful company of Dave Freezer on the way to Cardiff. We had a chat after the game, and I asked him whether he felt Norwich had turned the corner on Saturday.
The penny's clearly dropped. They know that they've got a battle. That was a proper championship game today, wasn't it? I mean, Norwich could have won it by a couple more, but they could have easily got a penalty decision against them in the second half. It was a proper championship scrap. And, you know, if they hadn't had this awful patch in the middle of the season, then that's exactly the sort of game that, if you were challenging for the top 2, you'd say, well, that's the sort of form that a title-winning team, or the sort of result that a title-winning team puts in. It's the sort of thing that Burnley did a lot when they got promoted. And Alex actually spoke about that in the summer, that Burnley was sort of the role models almost for how you get championship promotion. So it's definitely a step in the right direction, because that wasn't easy today.
Lots of nods to Dave Freeze's comments there.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think it was a case of showing a bit of steel for a change, and which they've lacked over recent months. But he's dead right as well. I think if you're talking later on in the season, my only concern is the damage already been done in terms of they should have been pushing for automatic promotion, in my opinion. And is that the difficulty now? Is it is playoffs and it does become a lottery, but are the top two still catchable?
Well, we are talking about teams that are struggling in the second
I do
half.
think so. If you look the first 6-7 months of the season, Norwich probably play as they used to play in the Premier League, on the ball, off the ball as well. Championship, as you just mentioned, it's tough. It's battles, it's physical, it's more games, it's more demanding, and he's right.
Are we struggling with the fact that this was Cardiff and this was Wigan? I mean, Wigan are in the bottom three as well. Norwich's record against the better teams is still not great itself. They have to surely take advantage of these chances.
It might prove to be a decent point, in the next couple of weeks. Wigan might improve, Yeah. It's difficult to say at the moment, but I think, going back to it, I think 4 points is a good return for 2 away games, and we haven't won away since the beginning of October, so...
It's definitely an improvement, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the new guys, shall we? Yannick Vilshood and Mitchell Dykes. Big Mitch, as we're now calling him. That's what Alec called him.
Considering the kind of what actually followed him before he actually came, with wanting to come and not coming and did come, there's always that concern for me about his desire and his attitude when he turned up here. But actually, it's been fantastic. He looks like a real leader. He seems to have got those other boys around him going as well. He is a beast, and he does like to put himself about. So a great asset. Yannick it'll take a bit more time. There's probably he probably feels a bit of pressure as well. £7 million coming in. I'm sure he feels that. So it's a heavy price tag for him.
It's interesting you say that, because I can't help thinking he put an advert in, I think, the Wigan Post or whatever it was, to sort of say, look, sorry guys, please don't take it personally, which obviously they did all take it very personally. But now that game's out of the way for Yannick, it might actually help him settle down. And they're at Carrow Road. He hasn't played there yet as well.
Exactly. I think, as Darren said, the £7 million price tag on the players is quite massive pressure on the shoulder. Now the game against Wigan is gone. Hopefully that will help him to free himself a bit more.
Yeah,
and I think as well that also they haven't played at home, have they? Which is, it feels like they've been here ages already, and they haven't played at home. I think the home fans will love them straight away. Do you know what I mean?
As a player, you want, especially on your first game, you want to play at home.
Yeah.
You want to show your fans where you are capable to do it.
Well, they're going to get 2 goes of that, aren't they, over next week? Right, the Norwich game freshest in everyone's mind is last night's trip to Championship strugglers Wigan. What a game. It featured goals from Nelson Oliveira and Mitchell Dykes, an unhappy return for Yannick Vilshood, and a sparkling debut by his replacement at the DW. It finished honours even, but what did the manager make of a 2-2 draw that checked his side's push for the playoffs?
I think if you take the 90-minute match, I thought we were probably on top for 70 minutes of that 90. I thought we created some good opportunities in that time as well, and through either maybe a bit of poor finishing or good goalkeeping or good defending or whatever you want to call it, we didn't score as many opportunities as I was hoping we would have, and we probably should have. The disappointing thing from our point of view is obviously we scored for 2 set plays, but we get done with a set play as well, and then the free kick is disappointing for us as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing because we should win, but it's a good point. We make 4 points in 4 days, and it's a good point. We need to focus on the next game, and if we win against Nottingham Forest, it's a good run. It's like 4 wins and 1 draw. It's good.
The disappointing thing is that Russell Martin's disallowed goal was onside, so for a start that should have been a goal, which wasn't. And I thought we'd get ourselves into real good opportunities at times, and maybe a final ball or a last finish maybe wasn't up to this quality that we normally have. And then even when we started the second half, I thought for the first 15-20 minutes we were excellent. We put them under real pressure. They looked as if they couldn't get out. And I thought we were going to go on and win the game. And to be honest, when they changed their shape, they pretty much matched us up man for man, and I thought, happy days, because I fancied my players to get the better of them. And like I say, I thought they had a wee 15-minute spell. They got a couple of balls down the side, got a couple of corners, got a bit of momentum, scored a goal, and then all of a sudden, certainly when you come away from home, they started to rally a little bit. They had 5-10 minutes in the game. They scored then another one, and then we started to go about our business again in the right way. Scored, and then Josh has a great opportunity where he shifts his feet and hits it, and the keeper flings a leg at it and manages to block it. But even then, I thought we had a lot of good fed ball into the sort of centre forwards and around the box, and I think normally we would expect maybe a bit better at times.
We should score one more in the first half, but we don't score. In the second half, we drop a little bit and we concede 2 goals. After we react well, we score the second goal, and I think we create more opportunities to score the third one, but unfortunately we don't score. It's a little bit frustrating, but like I say, it's a good point.
I was stood next to Alec Neil and I hadn't realised the steam was coming
He was
off his
steaming
head. He
when
was
he was
steaming. Right. Including deadline day, there have been 24 championship fixtures played since we last had a look at the results. So too much to go into in all the details and all that sort of stuff right now. But they have had an interesting bearing on the league table. This was how we left things last Tuesday. Norwich were in 8th, part of a chasing pack with Barnsley, Derby and Preston that were all looking up longingly at Sheffield Wednesday. And this is the state of play for Norwich now. And as you will see, while 4 points from 2 away fixtures is a pretty good return for Norwich, an extra 2 points last night would have really helped. As it is, that draw at Wigan leaves City just outside the playoff places. Sheffield Wednesday are still just above, but with a game in hand now and with their playoff prospects improving all the time. And up top, Brighton's wobble has seen them replaced at the summit by Newcastle, but both still look pretty good bets for automatic promotion. And in the bottom half, things were pretty bunched up from mid-table down to the relegation places. And what once looked a grim situation for Rotherham still looks a grim situation for Rotherham. They're surely doomed. But Wigan and Blackburn will still harbour hopes of reeling in Burton, Bristol City and maybe even QPR. Further up, there's not really a lot to choose between Wolves in 18th and Brentford up in 13th. Warren Joyce felt that the pitch is so bad at the DW Stadium, it's going to get his side relegated.
Proper
I'm not entirely sure it was the pitch. But
championship pitch, isn't it? Go along and hit in the corners. The only bit of grass on the pitch in the corners. It was pretty bad, wasn't it? But
For me, it depends how you want to play football.
Yeah.
If you want to play on a field and pass the ball as Wigan did for the first 6 months,
they just need to change their team after 6 months. So they
exactly.
just blow it along.
But usually it's a rugby club anyway. So
well, this is it. I mean, you guys must have played on so many different pitches. Yeah. People will come up with these excuses, but they're just excuses, aren't they? Just
Same for
deal with
both
what you
sides.
get.
Same for both sides, isn't it? And it can be a real level. If you used to play on it every week, actually, you can have that advantage.
Yeah, you get
against
used
the
to
team.
it.
Yeah, you do. So it's the visiting team that's often more difficult for.
Omar Bogle got half linked with Norwich over the January transfer window. Scott, I mean, he caused trouble. I don't think anyone has scored more braces this season, 2 goals in each game, than Omar Bogle and Dwight Gale.
He did look a handful. But I don't know. I think we should be able to deal with him, really, or the type of player that he is, really. This is the time for it when we need to just, our game management needs to be a bit better. We need to be a bit more switched on to these kind of, setups of play.
He did play 4-4-2 last night, which I mean, even he himself said, "Well, this is why I don't really like playing 4-4-2," which I thought was a curious sort of admission almost.
Well, if he wins, the answer's different, isn't it? And that was Elliot what I'm doing to change it. But yeah, there's good formations. It depends on players you've got available to set your team out. But it's interesting now, looking at Norwich in the table, looking up at Sheffield Wednesday, because that's often where you want to be, isn't it? Going into a promotion push towards the end of a season or a playoff push. It's often the team that's just outside that has that momentum, and the one actually who are in it start to stress up and pack pressures on them.
But what I like is we're talking about pushing to the playoff. A month ago, we're pushing that nowhere. So, it's a massive turn. Norwich will be in the playoff. I think if they carry on digging and going away and working hard, they will be there.
There was no other way this team should have been at the top 6 all season.
No.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, if we are in the playoffs, though, I think it's going to be 5th or 6th. I don't think.
The top 5 are too far ahead, aren't they? That's probably the problem. There we go. All right. That is the end of part 1. That went by in a flash. When we come back, we'll talk Moxie, what happened, and find out what the fans really think in Talk is Cheap. Don't go away. We'll see you in 3.
Teeth to match the appetite, and no to live Cardiff 0, Norwich 1. What happened? So sadly, I didn't see the game and I also didn't hear the game. I'm feeling a bit ill at the moment, so this video is going to be rip-roaring. I did watch the highlights, although they were as exciting as Jez Moxey's leaving present. There you go, Jez. It's 17p and a half-filled-in Nectar card application. Now get the So I didn't see it, but we went away. There you go. Ciao. Actually, wait 1 minute. There is something we could talk about. So why don't we talk about Jez Moxey? Because at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, Jez left the building. Blimey, I've seen snails last longer on a motorway. So the powers that be spent a lot of money, time, money, professional pride and money looking for the perfect fit for Norwich City's CEO. Sadly, Jez fitted Norwich City like a small cowboy costume would do on Ed Balls on a Tuesday night. Or as he likes to call it, the Strictly Come Dancing tour. So there we go. Didn't see the game, but we won 1-0. Well done, team. Yay. Hopefully I'll feel better next week. Hopefully it'll be a more exciting game next week. And goodbye, Jez. We hardly knew thee.
Hello and welcome back to The Pinken Show with Darren, Eadie, Cedric, Anselin and Scott George. Terrific work as always from Big Grant Holt, John Rogers. And obviously it won't have escaped your attention that there's been a bit of boardroom upheaval down Carrow Road way. Jez Moxey resigned as City Chief Exec last Friday, and it's still anyone's guess as to who might replace him, or indeed if the club will replace the position at all. Steve Stone is currently the club's interim Chief Exec, and friend of the show, Talk Norwich City's Jack Reeve, thinks he's the right man, if not for the job, then certainly the time being.
Dave McNally at times could be a nice guy. He took us from financial ruin to the Premier League. That whole setup that we had at the time was so brilliant, but I think we parted ties with him at the right time. I don't think he was the man to take us forward anymore. He'd done a lot of bad things as well as good things, and just because we've had Jez Moxey come in, who was woeful, doesn't mean he was suddenly the perfect man. Dave McNally done a lot of bad, but also a lot of good. We got rid of Dave McNally, he's gone. Stop having the love-in with Dave McNally. He's not going to come back, and even if he does come back, I don't think it's the best thing for the club. I think moving forward, under a fresh CEO is the best way to go. Jez Moxey clearly didn't work. We certainly won't be going with for a man like that anytime soon again. And I think Steve Stone is the perfect balance between kind of a hardened CEO and a very approachable guy. I don't understand why people think you can't be a nice guy and a good businessman at the same time. Some of the best business people I've ever met are also the nicest guys I've ever met. You don't have to be ruthless and cold-hearted to be CEO. He seems very approachable. I think that's a very key trait as a CEO. You need to be approachable. You need your staff to buy into what you're doing and be able to approach you and to be able to feel comfortable around you. He's very financially intelligent, so that's a good thing. Admittedly, not a massive footballing background, but wouldn't it be fantastic if we brought in maybe a director of football? Roy Hodgson was a person named. Bring him in, you know, kind of help Steve Stone along with the footballing knowledge, and let Steve Stone take hold of everything else.
I spoke to Steve Stone last Friday in the wake of Moxey's departure, and he left me in no doubt that he wanted the job full time, if the job exists after any restructuring the club might engage in. It's an interesting situation, really. And I mean, the whole Jez Moxey situation. Scott, you're the fan. How did when that rocked up? How did you feel about it?
I found it a strange appointment in the first place. Really, I mean, he's got a good half decent CV, but just no connection with Norwich. I just found it very strange, and I think it's been proven that it was a strange decision, really.
Yeah, not the right one, I suppose, because I think Jack touched on that, the money that Norwich had spent to get headhunters involved, to pick the right person, for it to last 6 months.
Yeah, and I think as well, the way the club have worked traditionally, they've kind of found their own, and maybe hired from within or word of mouth within those people. They did it a completely different way this time, which didn't work out. So I'm pretty sure this time it will be a bit more of in-house. And actually, I've spoke to Steve Stone a few times, and really good guy. seems an ideal candidate for the job, financially got his head screwed on, and that's the part of the club which needs to be ran. Obviously, the football side would need to be looked at differently, but certainly as a CEO of all the financial running the football club, why not?
Well, what I would say, I spoke to Steve Stone. He seemed a lot more assertive and in a I don't know, more confident in his role. So that's what makes me think this guy would like to do the job full time. And he applied for it in the summer as well.
He
exactly.
did. He was not desperate to get it, that's probably the wrong thing to say, but he really wanted the job, and I think he was hugely disappointed he didn't get it. So stuck on as financial director, proved his worth since then as well doing that job, and hopefully he'll just pull on the slippers.
Well, you can catch my chat with Steve Stone on the Mustard TV YouTube channel, so catch a look at that. And we went out and spoke to some Norwich fans about Jez Moxey's departure and how they felt about it in this feature that we're calling Mox Pops.
I think it sort of demonstrates a bit of a lack of ambition, really, and unless they have got someone ready to go as a replacement, then it's a bit short-sighted, I'd have thought.
He didn't seem to be a terribly popular person anyway, but a bit of a strange appointment in the first place, I think.
Crap, if the truth be known, and it is. But it was good, and they were doing really, really well. But now, for whatever reason, well, maybe it's Mr. Moxey. Who knows?
Well, from what I have read and from what I have heard quoted, or Wolves fans quoted, probably I'm not unduly sorry, and I don't think the club has been run very well recently. In fact, we thought long and hard about renewing our season tickets because of the way the club has seemingly fallen out with fans.
I think we need another McAnally type, someone who got a bit of a voice. I don't think we heard too much about Mr. Moxey.
Well, I mean, if he's the wrong man, he's the wrong man, and it doesn't matter whether 6 months, 12 months, 2 or 3 years. If he needs to go, doesn't he?
He didn't really have a lot of feedback with the fans, I think, which hasn't helped, because it's put more pressure on the manager than was really necessary, I think.
I don't think he let anything at all. I think he was just, not suitable for the job, at Norwich.
I'd like to see somebody perhaps who was reasonably strong in directing the board, to be more forward-looking.
I think there was an angry dog that wanted to say on Jez Moxey as well. I mean, there was a real disconnect, wasn't there, between the fans and Jez while he was in
massively. You could see that. Obviously, he's been here for 6 months. I don't really know what he's actually done at the club in 6 months' time. Obviously, it's probably why the fans have not really been behind him. For me, they need to have someone who's very ambitious and drive the boat forward. But it's always going to be difficult to do that job behind David McAnally because he's done such a good job.
And he made quite an impact when he first came in, didn't he, with Pritchard, making sure that deal got over the line.
Came in early.
Came in early. So,
and he did the job at 16 years for Wolves. This was a guy who had a degree of pedigree of running a club, even though the Wolves fans didn't like him.
Two different clubs in two different ambitions.
It doesn't fit like a player sometimes.
Exactly.
It doesn't come and do well.
Well, let's strip it down then. Part of what Norwich City are looking at now is whether they need a chief exec at all. And arguably, before Neil Doncaster, they didn't really have one. What do you reckon?
They've got some big personalities up in the board, haven't they? So I don't know if they need another one. Steve Stone probably ticks the boxes a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. But do they need one? I'm not too sure. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be a bigger role for Dealey's nephew as well within the football club. I'd imagine that's going to happen. And maybe he'll take that other role. Steve Stone will do that, and he'll take that. And from what I've heard, he's a very, very clever guy. So, why not give him a chance?
I'm hoping we're going to get to speak to him very soon, maybe, at some point.
They probably need to take their time. I think the next appointment, they have to take their time.
Yeah, and whilst things are going well on the pitch, all that kind of takes care of itself. So it is making sure, fingers crossed, that stays well.
They're not having to do it in the transfer window this time.
You don't know when we should be finishing. So I think at the minute, probably leave is and see at the end of the season.
Well, there could certainly be a lot to do in the summer if it doesn't go well. Either way, to be honest, however it goes. I'm just hearing that apparently Jez Moxey did ban producer Jake while he was trying to work as a journalist a few years ago, banned him from Molyneux.
Did he? Well,
so,
he's gone up in my estimation.
Finally had that
working as a journalist or as a modelling?
Well, who knows? One or the other. Right, we've had 2 games, the last of the transfer window and the last of the CEO. Plenty to get Canaries fans chirping, so let's hand the show over to you. It's time for Talk is Cheap. And we have our first caller on the line, which is Sam Walden. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to give us a ring. What would you like to discuss tonight?
I'd like to say I think we could make the playoffs if we improve our away form. I think 4 points from the last 2 is okay, although I think it should have been 6. I think there'll be one key player in the running, and that'll be Stephen Naismith.
I like that, Sam. Well, and obviously Norwich are missing him at the moment because he's got a hamstring injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out for, but what's impressed you about Stephen Naismith in recent weeks?
I just think he seems more settled in the side, and he's obviously pulled his act together compared to at the start of the season when he may not have been happy or he may have wanted to move to Sunderland. But he seems more settled and he's linking up well. And he doesn't score often, but he's chipping in with a few goals here and there.
And I do want to ask you about the CEO situation as well. Now that Jez Moxey's gone, how would you like that resolved?
Well, personally, I don't think David McNally should have gone. I would like to see him come back, but I don't think that will happen. And I think there's a lot more to it as to why he left than meets the eye, I feel.
Brilliant, Sam. Stay there for a bit. We'll come back to you. David McNally.
Never go back, do you? No, Walker come back. That wasn't successful, was it?
That very rarely works.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge, difficult one, and I think the club's in a very different position now to it was when David McNally was here. So it'd be almost starting again, I guess. But
even as a player, you never come back where you've been so successful. Never work.
But if you'd been players in that situation, would you have gone back? If one of your old clubs had come back and say, come back.
Yeah, I think the ambition's always there to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, right. Is that straightforward?
But I think, I just think there's too much probably water gone under the bridge there. Obviously, there's lots of stuff that's gone on that nobody really knows about. And would it ever happen? I'm not so sure it would.
There's a question for Darren. He was a legend when he was there. If Norwich called you back, you would come back.
Of course I would. I've been one leg.
Yeah, that's the way. Stephen Naismith. Stephen Naismith. Scott, how have you been impressed with him?
Yeah,
agree with Sam?
Yeah, the last couple of months definitely. He's definitely. I think he's working a lot harder for the team. I think the first few months of the season, I think he maybe thought he was a bit big for the Championship. But now he's starting to definitely work a lot harder. The last few games, he's definitely working harder.
Again, it's about the result. Yeah. If the result is following, players get more settled.
Yeah.
They're more happy with themselves.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's a case that he wasn't trying. I think he felt like because he's now starting to bark out orders.
I think he's pulling everyone with him, isn't he?
But then he couldn't feel like he'd do that when he's not in the side. If he wasn't playing well, it's hard to get your feet under the table because they'll go, you're not even playing. So now he's playing well.
It's so easy to make the runs where everything goes right.
Sam, thanks for holding on. You reckon Norwich will still make the playoffs? I assume it's only 6th that Norwich can realistically achieve now?
No, I think we could finish higher than 6th, but I will be in the playoffs if we make it, as I think one of the teams in the top 6 will have a bad run and drop out. Don't know which one yet.
It's going to be my next question, Sam. That was going to be my next question. Thanks so much for your call. Much appreciated.
It doesn't matter if you finish 6th, 5th, 4th or 3rd, does it? Really? If you're in the playoffs, you're in the playoffs.
Norwich's record against the top 6 sides, so far this season.
So far, the minute is from the 4th to the 6th or wherever, or the 3rd to the 6th. They don't really have a bad run at the minute. It's more Brighton here, top 2. They really struggle at the minute. So, as you mentioned, it would be better if one of them top 6, or not top 6, but the playoff, clubs.
I wouldn't want Huddersfield in the playoffs.
No.
Well, do you rate the top 6? We've seen them all once this season. They've all been pretty consistent now. I mean, is there anyone you look at that top 6 and think, well,
Sheffield Wednesday, I would have thought would probably the ones who wouldn't rate as much, but Huddersfield are fantastic.
Yeah. Leeds as well, have been up and down this season, so they're strong. They've got stronger since the season's gone on. So.
Them two clubs, they got two sides of them. They got a side of where they can play and the side they can graft, and you don't want them in.
But there's no reason why Norwich can't beat any of those sides. So get into the playoffs, you take your chances.
But again, it's on a day.
Well, they've got second half of the season to prove it, so let's hope we see it, shall we? Right, we've got our second caller on the line, I believe, which is Matt Gawood. I hope I pronounced that right, Matt. I've tried to add a bit of Gaelic flair to that. Matt, thank you so much for ringing in. What would you like to talk about? Sorry, Cedric.
Gents, basically, just talking about the recruitment, Jez Moxey and the current form.
Go for it. The floor's yours.
A lot of the supporters have been going on about the poor run of form, but it just coincides with the injuries we've had. I know that Alex Neil said on the radio that there was a bug that went around through the team, and we've had a lot of injuries as well. And I think if you're playing with a lessened team, shall we say, I know we've got a strong squad in general, but you could say that maybe you can't lay all the blame with Alex Neil.
And you mentioned recruitment as well. I mean, in terms of the window just gone, were you happy with the business Norwich done? Obviously, we've seen a bit of Yannick and a bit of Mitchell now.
Personally, I think it was good business. Obviously, I'm going to miss Olsen because he was a very good left back. However, if he didn't want to be at the club, then I don't see why we should keep players at the club that don't want to be there, because they're not going to be fully committed. But I do also think that maybe, I mean, we've done it in the past looking at lower leagues. Maybe there's a few hidden gems from maybe League 1, League 2 that actually want to prove themselves at this level, and they're more willing to try and prove themselves at a proven club like ourselves, like at Norwich, for example.
Stuff, Matt. I'll hold the line. We'll come back to you. It's an interesting one because Norwich City's recruitment in the last couple of seasons does seem to have been, well, he was the top striker in the Championship, and you know that digging, and it takes more effort, doesn't it? But have Norwich got that in them?
I think they got to a place where they could go out and pay decent money for established players. They didn't need to do that. The problem was the players they got weren't good enough. I think the success they have had was under Paul Lambert when they did go lower leagues. So it can work, but I don't think they did anything wrong trying to sign those big players. It was just the wrong players they signed. The recruitment was poor, simple as that. But yeah, lower leagues there's always a tulip. I mean, Bogle's a prime example of that at Wigan. 2 goals in his debut.
And would you wish that Norwich would take a gamble on these players?
That's what I'm saying. It's a gamble. It's massively a gamble. As I said, you got some players who can fit some clubs and some players can't fit some clubs. You don't know until they sign.
Surely that's an issue with any player, though, isn't it? I mean, Stephen Naismith was £8 million. That's no guarantees with it. The Wolf.
Yeah.
Bless him.
But I think Pritchard as well, £7 million from Tottenham. Has he proved anything yet? We don't know.
Matt, we'll take it back to you. I mean, how do you see things now that Jez has gone and the transfer window is done? This is what Alec Neil's got to work with. Are you confident that he's going to be able to get all he can out of these players, bearing in mind, as you said yourself, it's not all down to the manager?
I would say he could. I mean, we've kept the core of the squad through the transfer window. We've added some class players who are obviously proven in, like, for example, Dykes, I think it was, played in the Champions League or a European League. I don't exactly remember which one. But he's proven at that level, so I don't see why we can't push on from where we are at the moment. I mean, Jez Moxey, I think, since he's left, the form's improved, and I'm wondering whether or not, now he's gone, maybe Alex Neil was a bit of a scapegoat, and maybe he's now got the opportunity to prove what he can do if the problem at the club was higher than himself, if that makes sense.
Does make sense indeed. Matt, thanks so much for your call. Top call. And that's something we'll see how it plays out.
Talking as a player, I mean, I can't believe that anything upstairs with the CEO would have any bearing on results.
No, it didn't really affect you guys, is it? When you were playing?
I think it's got no bearing on those results. I think they've just picked up in form because they've got a couple of decent players in, and they've picked up in form. And they probably realised themselves we're in trouble here if we don't pull the fingers out.
But I think the whole club has lifted a little bit because of it. I mean, from the fans' point of view, I think it seems to me they.
But again, it's all about result. You bring the mood and the happy mood.
Yeah.
The result follow. Everyone want to come back and watch the game.
Well, you could argue was Jez Moxey a scapegoat?
Well, this is it. I mean, two games ago against Wolves at home, there's 2 home games ago, we had Jez Moxey out, chance to keep the Wolves fans happy. I imagine the mood will be better on Saturday.
Yeah,
well, I hope so. Anyway.
We've
got some tweets, so let's get through some of these, shall we? We've got Jack Holmes, first of all, very talented boy with his designs and drawings and what have you.
Brilliant.
That sounded really patronising. I genuinely, Jack is a very
talented... buzzing with that description.
Jack is a very talented boy. But the point here is a good one as well on Alex Pritchard, because he is starting to have an effect. And my colleague, David Freezer, was speaking to me. He's creating more goals in a shorter space of time than Wes Houlihan at the moment. George Wilbraham, he watched the highlights, and he now puts both goals that Norwich conceded against Wigan down to John Ruddy. I'm not sure about the first one, the free kick. I mean, the ball went where Reddy would have been standing rather than behind the
He's
wall.
tried to second guess it. A lot of goalkeepers do that. I don't think they're going to bend it over the wall, especially with the left foot. You think they're going to go over the wall into the near corner, but Bogle obviously had him on toast.
We've got one picture to flag up. It's is it Alec Neil preparing for his career after football and after Norwich City? I mean, it obviously got quite close, didn't it, in a few months ago? I don't know. So there we go. Maybe you can clean up and who knows. Thanks as always for everyone who got involved in this week's Talk is Cheap. And if you want to have your say in any future shows, simply send us an email to sport@mustardtv.co.uk. That's it for part 2. When we return, we'll be looking ahead to Nottingham Forest and maybe even Newcastle United too. We'll see you in 3. Hello and welcome back to the final part of the Pinken Show with Darren Eadie, Cedric, Anselin and Scott George. Now, understandably, throughout January, our attempts to get this next man on the phone have been a little harder than they might usually be. But with the transfer window now having slammed shut, our favourite football agent, Dan Chapman, should be able to speak to us a little more easily. Dan, are you there?
I am indeed. Good evening, guys.
Together. Darren Eadie's got his arms in the air, raised. It's good to see. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Have things settled down a bit now that the window is all closed and done?
Yeah, absolutely. It's calm and relaxing and all is good. Thank you.
How was the window for you then? And also deadline day. I mean, you're obviously working on a lot of things. Did you get the things done you needed to do? And did you have a little highlight in there?
We had a good window. I think our highlight, undoubtedly, something I'm quite proud of. We did the only transfer in the top 6 clubs in the Premier League in January. Incredibly, only one transfer in the top 6 clubs, which shows actually that it was a really quiet January, because if the top 6 clubs aren't doing deals, then it doesn't really cascade down. But we did do the one they did, so that was great. So yeah, we had a good January overall. Deadline day was a little bit of a non-event. We had 3 things that might have happened and none of them did. So a few wasted miles on deadline day, but that's part of the course.
So 2 follow-up questions to that. What was the deal that you did get done, the only deal in the top 6? But also those deals that didn't come off, do you have half an eye on reigniting those and ahead of the next transfer window as well?
Yeah. On your second question, yes. You're always planning a window or so ahead, and the January window is strange. Many deals that collapse in January do then happen in the summer. So out of those 3 that collapsed, I'd be disappointed if at least 1 or 2 of them didn't still happen in the summer. In terms of the Premier League deal we did, it was quite a high-profile story because it was a lad from non-league who went to Arsenal, a boy called Cohen Bramall, and he settled in nicely. I watched him on Monday night actually playing for Arsenal under-23s at Everton, and if he wasn't cup-tied, he'd be making his debut on Saturday in the FA Cup for Arsenal. But sadly, he's played in the FA Cup in the first qualifying round for Hennesford back in August, and it's deprived him of the opportunity of making his Arsenal bow at the weekend. But he's doing well, so that's been great for us.
Story that would have been something special. I mean, the fact that you're an agent, you live and work in Norwich, do you find yourself sort of with these non-league players who you think have got big futures, do you find yourself automatically giving Norwich a nudge and saying, oh, this guy?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's frustrating when you have a player in non-league that you believe in. Darren will understand this in some of the things he's been doing as well. You find players that have fallen out of the game that you believe in, and you want everyone else to believe in them as much as you do. But you get a lot of no's, and Cohen was a good example. He signed for Arsenal, but there were a lot of clubs smaller than Arsenal that just didn't fancy him. And Norwich would be no different to many other clubs in that they'll have their priorities, they'll have their views, they'll have their requirements, and you just have to accept that almost 99 times out of 100, you get the door slammed in your face when you put a player to a club.
Jake says you should go and see him play sometimes, but I'll save you the bother, mate. Don't bother.
Can you come next week?
Cedric's still playing.
Well, the demands are raining in now, Dan. But just before you get onto that, just one more question. In terms of Norwich's business, you saw it from afar. What did you make of it? Yannick coming in, and then Mitchell Dykes too.
Well, the left back from Ajax, I've seen play a few times, and he looks to be a seriously good player. My fear with him is he's in the shop window for everybody else for the summer. So the challenge for Norwich will be to try and convert that into a permanent, because if they can, I think that would be a stellar signing. The other lad, I guess the jury will be out for a little longer on. He's did well at Wigan, not so well at Middlesbrough, so we'll see how he settles in. But I think the left back, in the short term, is going to prove to be a top signing.
Dan, an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and all being well, we will have Dan on the show in the studio next week, which is going to be very exciting. Brilliant. Get your questions ready, and Jake will obviously be preparing his game. At Sheringham, I think, is that they playing you guys?
On the 18th.
He's very excited about it.
Big game.
He keeps taking his shirt off behind me and all sorts, so it's good for him. Right, it is all eyes on Carrow Road this Saturday as Norwich lock horns at home with Nottingham Forest. It's a game that could well be pretty free scoring.
So it turns out I should have gone Oxford, should have gone Cambridge, should have shown promise, should have listened to my teachers, dropped my dreams, worked hard and stayed in college. But you're teaching agenda, outdated policies and recycled knowledge. I think I speak for us all when I say respect. That's enough of your... I'm not trying to offend anyone, I'm just a realist. I'm not trying to protect anyone, I'm just trying to make you feel as maybe if I was a little better looking, I could be a pop star. Or maybe if I sold my soul, I could be a pop star. Everything I do is left, cause it just ain't right. And shit, it keeps on coming, and shit, it keeps on coming. Everything I It's like nobody understands what I'm trying to do. Maybe I'm just deluded. Then I Jack your waistband, go back to school and get a degree, man. Jack, get married, son, go have kids and go be normal, son. You're living in a dream, a far-fetched reality, and it's gonna haunt you when you fade.
Tune. Right, okay, let's have a look at the fixtures, shall we? We've got midweek and weekend fixtures first. Now, this is the first time I've seen these, so let's have a look. Sheffield Wednesday, Birmingham kicking it off on Friday night. What else we got? Brighton at home to Burton. You'd imagine Brighton will win that. Ipswich heading to Villa Park. There's two teams in great form at the moment.
Newcastle, Wolves. Wolves, Newcastle.
Wolves, Newcastle. Paul Lambert will be licking his lips at
Rotherham, Blackburn as well. That'd be a cracker.
Norwich, of course, taking on Forest at home. And then Tuesday, it's almost a full programme. Norwich, of course, at home to Newcastle, which will be a fascinating fixture indeed. A real chance for Norwich to underline their improvement, hopefully. Leeds at home to Bristol. City we've got there. Derby, Cardiff. Brighton, Ipswich. Could Mick McCarthy's side do Norwich a favour? Well, it's not really doing Norwich a favour, is it, to be honest? Wolves at home to Wigan. And Reading, Brentford will be the late kick-off there. There you go. I hope we're all the wiser. I've forgotten them all already. Nottingham Forest then. I mean, they're a funny old side, aren't they? Because they've had so many changes. They're looking for a chief executive at the moment as well. Rumour has it.
There's one
With one left,
Could be Moxie.
Could be Jez Moxie.
Interesting side, actually, like you said, but that's one of Norwich's best performances of the season away from home at Forest. So,
and the only other time they've come from behind to take anything by all accounts. I mean, that's shocking.
That was a very similar game to Wigan. It was kind of two teams almost, wasn't it, in that day? But Norwich, I thought, dominated that game pretty much. But it looks to repeat that at home. You'd expect it. Whether Forest will come and play the same pattern, the same shape, I don't know. But
I think Forest play in a different way now. They changed managers, obviously, not a long time ago.
And you feel they're more organised now as well?
Well, I watched them against Aston Villa on TV. I think it was, Sunday or Monday?
Yeah, it was Saturday. Saturday, was it late Saturday?
And I saw them very organised, very direct when they got the ball, very hard to beat. So it'd be a cracking game.
I mean, they are the example. Us all Norwich fans sit here talking about, Delia or Michael, I wish they'd push the battle, come in and get someone in, take over the club. You look at Forest, how that's panned out, and the ownership that have promised so much and just completely under-delivered.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess there, isn't it? It's a lot of changes. Forest has always been one of them clubs that's been a good tradition, a big club. It's a bit of a shame, really. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Forest, but it's always a good game between Norwich and Forest. Always a good game.
Yeah,
so.
Norwich have played them a lot, haven't they? That's the thing. They seem to come up against them regularly, and the fortunes seem to follow each other. Normally do well. That's why we've got a smile on your face. I can see that. Don't forget, Friday Sports Extra will have all the top lines from City's pre-match press conference. You'll also be able to catch the highlights on Mustard TV's YouTube channel. Of course, with Norwich taking on Forest, it's always good to have a look at the 11s that these guys would pick if you're in the dugout. Cedric, we're going to have a look at yours first. This is your 11. Sticking with 4-4-2.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
Too right.
Well,
Too right.
As I said, you don't really change a system or a team who I would call done really well away at Wigan. And I will stick with it.
I think it'd be interesting.
Striker up front.
I think it'd be interesting if Naismith is fit. I think if Naismith is fit, he might go back to taking Wilshere out, putting Naismith in, and going back to that normal system.
Yeah, we don't know quite how long he's out for. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, he loves it at home.
He loves it, yeah.
No, if he's fit, I think he'd play. But I mean, you'll see in a minute. I haven't put him in because today we don't know. So
let's bring it on, Scott. Let's have a look at your 11. Is it 4-4-2? Is it? But no, it's not 4-4-2. Take us through this.
Not necessarily what I would probably pick myself, but
dear.
This is probably what I'm thinking what he's going to do. I would like to see Godfrey play at home, especially after the last time he played. I thought he was really good. Good opportunity for him.
Houlihan and Pritchard on the same side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Two creative players.
And you've gone with Cameron instead of
Yeah, I mean, it's 50-50 to be honest between them two, Nelson and Cameron. So it's
nice problem to have at the minute, isn't it? They're both.
Yeah, I think
that's good for a manager.
I think should be a strong bench as well, which Wigan wasn't so strong. So if you get a few players back,
Lay it on the line then, Scott. What would you have done? What would you like to see? Not what the manager would pick.
Probably wouldn't have played Jacob Murphy. I was going to say to Darren about what does he need to do, or the both of them, what do they need to do, and you know, going forward, just to push on a little bit. They've just stalled, especially Jacob.
And an interesting point on that, because it was Josh who came on first at Wigan and Jacob.
Yeah, and Jacob has been the man this season, isn't he? He's more than proved himself. But it's difficult. They are still young, and well, you know, but you can't keep making excuses for that. At their age they are now, they should be performing week in, week out.
At a good level.
At a good level. You know, they are capable of that now.
Is it about how they're managed? Is it about giving them more rest time, or you genuinely? I think you said this before. You think they should be playing every week?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. No matter how old you are, if you're good enough and you're playing well, you're in the side.
Yeah. I think there's 50-50 in the crowd as well, with the fans, what they think of Jacob, especially.
I think as well, there's a reason they went on loan in the first place. It wasn't just to gain experience; it's because they weren't ready. So are they quite not there again to be as?
And separately as well, they went to separate clubs.
For me, I saw them playing a few times. On the ball, they can create anything. They're very direct, is what you want.
Championship defensively.
They're enthusiastic as well because they're very young. It's the other side of the game that they need to progress.
Which you two both had to learn? You were both wingers.
Yeah, you did. You learned quick. Because when you got people barking at you,
you have to learn quickly because there's so many games during the year. And you have to be able to play at a certain level, consistency, with the ball, without the ball.
But that's where those leaders on the pitch come into play, because that you know, we did in sort of the Munich days. That was what they were doing. Those experienced players were telling us what to do, and that's what they should be doing to those youngsters now.
Stephen Naismith does, isn't it? Okay, so predictions then, guys, for both games if you want, because Newcastle's coming up too.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, it's a good spell this for Norwich, isn't it? It's a really tough one. I'm going to go 2-0 against Forest, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, Newcastle Norwich.
Another 4 points.
4 points.
Well, Norwich are in great form at home. I would say 2-0 Forest, 2-0 Norwich against Forest, and I will go for 1-0 Newcastle.
2 scores, Scott.
2-1 first game, and 3-1.
Both weeks. Brilliant stuff. That is us done for tonight. But fear not, you can still get plenty more of your Norwich City fix via Mustard's YouTube channel and our Facebook page. There's loads more City content on the Pinkham website too, so look out for all the highlights from City's pre-match presser on Friday. And don't forget that come Saturday, I'll be back with Darren for a Pinkham match day that picks up all the analysis from in and around the ground once the full-time whistle has sounded against Forest. We'll be back same time, same place for another Pinkham show next Wednesday. Thanks to Darren, Cedric and Scott for tonight, to Dan, all our callers and tweeters. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you very soon. Good night.